side of 464 in the old edition. When he's talking about studying the organism, we're studying our organism at the moment, but we're studying it in a way that is only a part of a good first class. If our community was informed and in a tradition. Hugh mentioned last night the problem of authority. There's a sense in which I like authority to talk to you. I didn't like that authority when I went to teach mathematical physics for the first time. I had a class about double this size, and they knew there was a second year and a third year and a fourth year, and there was a place of theoretical physics where J.L. Singh was down the road and so on. They had the chemistry of that humility. Similarly, when one goes to learn the piano, unless you're really nuts, and I know nutty people like that, you're not saying, well, I like to play like this. You're there to work your way towards being Glenn Gould, very slowly. But it's an interesting thing to think about. It's elder, but it's also an ethos of a science. That there is a science, and that I did very well in grade 12, and I think I can do honors mathematical physics. And it's a funny thing that when I was in Mount St. Vincent's, I used to recall this. My first year teaching in Dublin, I was teaching mathematical physics at different levels, and including engineering and graduate relativity and things like that. But I met the professor after the first few days, and he said, "How is it going, Mr. McShane?" And I said, "Well, I have a pretty good class of about 30 people, and yeah, they're responding well." And he said, he had a Northern Irish accent. He said, "Now, what you do is, you lecture over their heads for a couple of weeks, you clean out the class, and you'll have a great year." Now, that is totally foreign to Canadian universities. You practically bribe the kids to come into your class. I think I remember Sally coming to me way back when we were younger, wanting to do philosophy 100. I was teaching 100 that year. And I said, "Oh, you don't need this." my policy was very different from the other. No. You'll never get a job with this. But do you see the psychological presence or absence in a culture that is dominated by a conviction, not a suspicion, that human beings are far more obvious than electrons. And this is in our homes, and it's what's destroying the European economy. There's no sense in these people that they have no bloody idea what money is. At one stage in the last few months, the team, think tank, they thought, well, we'll make up money and we'll lend the Americans the money and they can lend us the money and we'll get out of our trouble. Well, they should have gone to the Chinese. Printing press. I brought along some of my notes. I have thrown out all sorts of notes. Sally doesn't like this because she wants to sell them after I die. But all I've left of my lecturing career is one course, which is the course on mathematical physics, the honors course. And this one little book, which I found, and it's a preparation for my master's exam on general relativity. And I was highly amused at it. And so I photocopied the last 2 pages of this. You can pass it on. It's a laugh a minute, so to speak. Now, I was thinking, the last time we met in Vancouver, I handed out a sort of a symbol of the week, which was a picture of Port Meadow, where the buttercups grow on this big open space. It hasn't been plowed for centuries, and it was the place of investigation of the types of buttercup. And a massive investigation showed that 3 different types of buttercup had different thirsts. But that's a lot of work. And I mean, you have to imagine getting the twine out and measuring out 10 foot square, that would have been the measure at the time, and a team working. Some guy got a doctorate for it. It's murder. Now, the advantage of just, this is not a picture of primroses, it's a picture of, if you like, elementary work on the twists and turns of space-time if we had a chance of examining it as it was in the early part of the first second. Does this sound sufficiently crazy? You had, for that early part of the first second of the Big Bang, geometry, a very elementary cosmic geometry, which could be included under these equations. The gravitation, the equations actually cover electricity as well. Now, I would like you to notice that it looks so neat and simple when you look at this gamma equation, but it's actually 64 equations. And you see that when you turn over the page and you see me juggling with all these little numbers and cancelling out and so on. You're trying to find out, how is space wriggling at a particular point? And it's very hard work. And this is the key thing in the reorientation of humanity. I read over stuff in Aristotle and Aquinas and all of them. And the trouble with these lads is that they were very bright. And I'm slower. And they come up with a notion of thinking that doesn't square with me at all. For me, thinking is a bloody slow process. Some of you know, and I'm thinking quite daft, that I say it took me 42 years to read Lonergan on energy. That's very slow. Sally knows that when we went to Oxford 2 years ago, I began working on the Trinitarian spirituality, that it is beginning to shape up slowly. I mentioned, I put into words my work of last week in relation to the chemical undertow of the 3 divine personalities. I've never heard anyone talking about that, but it's there. The 4 hypothesis thing that Bob Dolan talks about, the fact that we are a participation of active spiration, which is two of the personalities together, and passive spiration, which is the Holy Spirit or charity. Now, I mentioned